Hello YouTube, I'm the Godless Ukrainian. This is my first video in English. Sorry for not showing my face. We've got a war in my country. Russian fascists are trying to destroy our energy infrastructure, and at this moment I don't have electricity. Just sitting here in the dark, recording my thoughts. Later I'm gonna put some gameplay footage or something like that on top of the audio to keep it more entertaining, for YouTube at least. Maybe I'm gonna publish these recordings in a format of an audio podcast. We'll see. Of course, if you wanna see how I look, just watch my other videos. I've been making videos in Russian for I don't know how many years, maybe 7 videos about atheism, religion, critical thinking, philosophy, science, etc. And now I don't have motivation to make videos in Russian. I'll be mostly making videos in English or in Ukrainian. I guess I don't have to explain why. So now is the 9th month of this war. I mean the full-scale invasion, because the war itself between Russia and Ukraine is like 8 years old. First they annexed some parts of our country. The international community didn't do anything about it, almost anything. Our military at that time was too weak and almost non-existent. We couldn't properly defend ourselves. Some of us Ukrainians didn't even understand what was going on. Russian propaganda was pushing their own false and stupid narratives, but a lot of people believed them, even in our country. I live in a southern part of Ukraine, in Odessa region. In our region we got mostly Russian-speaking population, and they were consuming this Russian content, listening to Russian propaganda, and often believing all of it. I think Western people misunderstand a couple of things about Russia. First of all, they overestimate Russia's potential as a country, their military, economic potential, etc. But at the same time they underestimate the power of Russian propaganda. I've seen people on the internet people who live in the USA and other countries, they just watch a couple of videos from Russia Today or read a couple of articles and they're like, wow, the Western media is lying to us, we gotta listen to whatever Kremlin is saying. CNN, BBC is hiding the truth. They are just painting a false narrative. And Russia Today is like the beacon of truth in this world of corporate liars. Of course, there's probably a description of probably some conspiracy theorists, and that's how Russian propaganda is trying to affect them. But what they're trying to do to other people is more like trying to confuse them. They're not even trying to make people believe one narrative. On the contrary, they are constantly generating lots of narratives, sometimes completely contradictory. They are just creating this noise, trying to confuse people and just make them passive. You don't really know what's going on in Ukraine, so just don't help them. Don't do anything. Don't try to stop Russia. Don't try to save anybody. Just live your own life and don't think about these things. Of course, as critical thinking people, we're trying not to rush with our decisions, but when the time is of the essence, when you see that crime is being committed right in front of you, you don't have time to decide who's right and who's wrong in this situation. You just gotta try to stop it and then decide later. For example, if you see one man who's trying to kill another, you are going to try to stop that. Even though you don't have the full picture, you don't know what caused that, but you know that you gotta stop that. You gotta help the victim first, and then you'll be able to decide, was that attacker right or wrong? We people are often have to deal with the absence of information and absence of time. Of course, if we have time, we gotta take all the time we need to make our decision, to do all the research we need. But when we have the situation when people are being hurt right now, even realizing that we don't see the full picture, we don't know a lot of things, but we gotta do something. On the contrary to what Russian propaganda is saying, they're trying to give you this algorithm. If you don't know something, don't do anything. But critical thinking people understand that we often don't know lots of stuff, but still we gotta live, we gotta make decisions daily, because not making a decision is also a decision. And also basic critical thinking skills help us recognize all those non sequiturs of Russian propaganda, victim blaming, logical fallacies, etc. And also basic understanding of how totalitarian regimes work, how the media, completely controlled by these totalitarian regimes, works. That's important to understand. Important to understand how it affects us, how it affects other people. There is an audio podcast from BBC, I guess, called The War on Truth, and that's what these totalitarian regimes do. They lead the war on truth, and this war might be absolutely brutal, but also kinda hidden and invisible to most people. And I find it kinda surprising that people who are living in democratic free countries, they prefer believing the media from totalitarian regimes. They are buying into these Russian narratives, so they spread them, spread these fakes, and at the same time they consider themselves to be critical thinkers, free thinkers. We don't believe Western media. They lie to us. It's all bullshit. All these Western corporations, the government, they are all against us. Russia's gonna save us all. No, guys, if you really want to be good at critical thinking, you gotta understand that believing these totalitarian regimes is just stupid. Anything that you hear from them, you just gotta fact check every claim, every word. Of course, Western media can lie, they can push some false narratives, but just try to think about how much higher is the probability of lying for these media that depend on some totalitarian regimes. Media that are fully controlled by the government, paid by the government. If in free democratic countries you can have both dependent and independent media. In a totalitarian regime you only have media that depends on the will of some dictator. Well, more about this I'm gonna be talking in some other videos, and also I'm gonna be making videos not only about the war in Ukraine or something like that, but about religion, philosophy in general, about different things I'm interested in. I'm just gonna record my thoughts, especially in times like this, when we have blackouts. When I have electricity, I'm usually too busy with my work, don't have a lot of free time, but these blackouts actually give me some opportunity to share my thoughts. I have both time and motivation during blackouts, so these attacks Russians are committing, they actually motivate us Ukrainians to do more, to speak out more about this situation. Russian fascists are doing these really stupid things, you know, when they're trying to make us Ukrainians more angry, and they think that, what, we will be less willing to fight against them or what? I don't understand. For example, when these Nazis are sending me pictures with pigs, calling me, I don't know, Žido-Banderovets, racial slurs about both Ukrainians and Jews, and they're kind of mixing these together, and at the same time they think that they are not Nazis, they are fighting against Nazis. It's absolutely crazy. You hate Jews, you hate Ukrainians, and you're not a Nazi. Yeah, that's good thinking right here. A famous historian who's often speaking about Ukraine, Timothy Snyder, he's trying to popularize this term schizofascism. It's when a fascist thinks that he's not a fascist, he's fighting against fascism, Nazism, etc. I think this is a really good description of Russian fascism. They're more concerned with how they seem, with their external image, how they are perceived by the world. And they don't really care about their ideology really being a fascist ideology. Well, I'm gonna be talking about Russian fascism later. It's a really interesting topic. We gotta learn not only from our past, from history, but also from current events. If we want less people to be hurt, to be killed by these totalitarian ideologies, fighting against totalitarianism, against propaganda of totalitarian regimes is really, really important. Well, I guess that's it for now. I gotta go use my workout machine to keep myself warm. Thanks again to stupid Russian fascism for the motivation and the time to actually do something that can be not really beneficial to them, right? Like making content, speaking out against them, and keeping myself in shape physically in case I have to physically fight them. These blackouts, these small inconveniences cannot stop Ukrainians, cannot break our spirit. It only makes us more willing to resist, more motivated to do something for our country, for our victory. Whatever you do to our civilian infrastructure, to our civilians, to our cities, it only makes us stronger, more motivated, more angry, because you know what we Ukrainians say, whatever doesn't kill us only makes us stronger. So until the next time, subscribe to the channel, leave your questions in the comment section, and remember that our level of totalitarianismophobia is not high enough.